What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com, and it's another edition of the betting show today as we look ahead to UFC 286, which goes down just across the water from me here over in the beautiful O2 Arena in London, England, and it's a spicy card here on Saturday night. I'm going to have to pay for the pay-per-view this time. I usually get it for free, so I'm going to have to win some money to earn that back, so that's what we're here to do, win some money on Saturday night. Before we get into next week's bets, though, let's talk about last week's bets. And it was a bit of a bounce back week. Obviously, we had a terrible week. The week before only got one bet right, so we got our 2 out of 4 right last week. We made par, not a bad week at all. We had Alexander Shibley and MVP, who both, I think they both went off around minus 140. I know MVP was minus 130. I think Shibley was around minus 145. Similar enough prices, not bad prices. Both won. Well, the Shibley one, obviously, we all know how that ended, but I think the referee got it right. My other bets, I got them. I got the 2 of the 4 like totally wrong, but for different reasons. Yan to win by KO, TKO. That was probably the worst call I've ever had on this show. I'd say in the however long I've been doing it, 18 months now or anything, in terms of like how I've been wrong. I've been totally wrong about things, but how like, you know, demonstrably like over the top wrong I was on that one. I was pretty wrong, and a shout out to Jafel, because he I think he proved a lot of people wrong, including myself, and he deserves all the plaudits he's gotten in the last week since that. So that bet went down to Swanee. And then Usman or Mokaev, I had him by decision, and he proved me wrong in a more positive way. You know, I said it, if he wins the fight in the fashion he did, we're going to have to start talking about him in a different way, and I do think we are. I know a lot of the people over in Bellator were kind of complaining about the rankings. He isn't ranked highly enough and stuff, and you know, I think based on ability they definitely have a point, because he is a top fighter. And in the FLIER as well, Moldavsky to win by submission. Very, very big surprise there with Linton Vassell actually winning the fight. So look, the FLIER week, we know that's a take it or leave it every week, but for Moldavsky to not even win, I think was a bit of a surprise. So it was a bit of a weekend of surprises last weekend, but to come out even after that with 2 of the 4 to hit, not bad at all. So we are still 50-50 for the year. 15 of the 30 bets have been correct, and 4 of 9 of the FLIERs, which is, you know, if I could keep it around that, I'd be very, very, very happy. So it has been a good start to the year over the first, I think it's 8 weeks or so. Let's get into the bets for next week. And you know what? I've gone a little bit, I went maybe a little bit safe last week. I'm going half safe maybe this week, and half not safe. So let's put it that way. So I've my FLIER as we always have, but the first 2 bets I'm going for here are a little bit bigger prices, because I kind of I've just feelings for the first 2, and that's I like to go on my feelings, and everyone knows this is the everyman's betting show. This is not, you know, maybe some people listen in if you do your units and all that. That's grand. That's not me. I go down to my local bookmaker here on Saturday night, you know, a couple of hours before the fights. I'll have my 15, 10 quid or whatever it is. I'll put on this bet and this bet, and that's me. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that too. And that's what these bets are for. And you know, I've said that before, but maybe just I know there is a lot of new people tuning in, but I wanted to say it again. But and thanks to all those people who've been tuning in. Before I get into it, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know your bet. I will reply. Last week I was away at a wedding, so I didn't get a chance to reply to everyone, but I will this week. I'm here, nothing to do, only sit at home and look at the YouTube comments. So let me know in the comment section below, if you're watching this on YouTube, what your lock of the week is. Is it going to be Usman? Is it going to be Edwards? Do you think Fiziev can do it? Who is your lock of the week? Let me know in the comment section below. Right. This is not my lock of the week, but my first bet of the week anyway. Let's get into it. I'm going, and it's a bit of a bigger price here, as I told you I would, but I'm going to take chances. I'm going to tell me you're my record every week, but I'm not going to concentrate on it. I'm not living and dying by that record. I'm living and dying by kind of good bets that I hope will work out. So the first one here, Gunnar Nelson to win by decision over Bryan Barberena at plus 320. Now, I looked at the odds for this fight, and this was the one that stuck out to me. And I've said before as well, the odds that stick out to me are the ones I'm going to go for. Because if you look at the odds of this fight, right, Gunnar Nelson is minus 450 to win straight up. And the first bet you always go to when it's Gunnar Nelson is obviously the submission. But he's minus 130 to win by submission. Right, so I don't like that. When you're looking at a prop bet like that and have such a small price of minus 130. Like, I actually think the minus 450 is too big. I think this should be a little bit closer. I think it should be minus maybe 350, maybe even minus 300 for Gunnar Nelson, with maybe Barberena coming in to plus 200, plus 250, something like that. Just because of the fact, like, Gunnar hasn't been fighting all that often, you know, and Barberena kind of has, and Barberena is the tough out, and you never know what you're going to get with Barberena. I do think Gunnar deserves to be favoured, but I don't think it's one of those blow-away fights that this suggests, on paper at least. Now, it might turn into that, absolutely, as we all know, but I think, with that said, the submission priced in is a bit low as well. Now, look, what's the most high possibility of how this fight ends? If we're predicting it, I think most people probably would say the Gunnar Nelson submission, and, you know, minus 130 if you think that's the most, most popular, most likely way of it happening. Okay, not too bad, but for me, I just have I look at the odds for the knockout. I look at the odds for the decision and all of that, and I just think that the Gunnar Nelson decision stands out to me as the one there. So the Nelson win by decision, as I said, is plus 325. The fight itself to go to a decision is plus 190, minus 230 for it to not go to decision. So I like that plus 190, honestly, and I was going to give that bet, but I do think Gunnar Nelson will win. So to, not double it, but almost double it, I think that's good. Plus 325. Now, there's another bit of reasoning as well. If you look at Bryan Barberena's record, right, you see he's lost by submission twice. Once was 13 years ago, and his third fight or whatever, so let's write that off. And his last one was in his last fight against Rafael Dos Anjos, right? And the difference, I think, between Dos Anjos and Gunnar Nelson is the ability to put the pressure on and wrestle after it. That's always been Dos Anjos' forte. That's what he's known for. Remember the Pettis fight? That is like I talked about Mrab last week, and the fight I compared him to was Dos Anjos against Pettis, the one I just mentioned there. That's what Dos Anjos is, right? Gunnar Nelson's the exact opposite of that. The biggest issue in his career has always been putting on pressure and getting the takedown. Now, if he does that and manages to get the takedown or pulls guard or whatever he does, he's lightning. He's an absolute anaconda on the ground. He's just going to tear you up and make it look easy. But that ability to get you down to the ground is very, very, very tough. The only one who's been able to do it and submit Barberena in the last 13 years is one of the best guys we've ever seen in the lightweight/welterweight divisions at doing it. A very, very, very good guy in that realm with very good jiu-jitsu and very good wrestling. I think this is going to be a much more even-keeled fight on Gunnar Nelson's part. Barberena will, I think, try to make it into a war. He will try to put the pressure on. Maybe he won't try to get a few takedowns like he throws in the odd time. But I think it'll be one of those fights where Gunnar Nelson catches him. And we forget too sometimes that Gunnar Nelson actually has very good stand-up, very good karate. There's a couple of knockouts in the UFC and things like that. He's good on his feet, and will be happy enough if he can kind of keep away from Barberena. Not be brought into that war to win the fight on the feet. And he mightn't even need a takedown. He mightn't even need a submission, if you get me. And if that happens, is there a world where Gunnar Nelson finishes him? Yes. But is that the most likely outcome if that happens? I asked you about the most likely outcome earlier. I think the most likely outcome if that happens is a Gunnar Nelson decision win. Or maybe a Barberena decision win, as I said earlier. The plus 190, not a bad bet at all. But I do think Gunny will win, so I've gone for the plus 325. A little bit greedy, but look, that's the job we're in, I suppose. So that's my kind of reckoning there. A guy who's only been submitted once in 13 years against a guy who's very, very good, but finds it hard sometimes to get guys like even Barberena to the ground and get him down and submit him. And a guy who has maybe, Barberena has good striking as well, but I think Gunnar Nelson has more of an ability to maybe control the striking than Barberena does. And I think that's why I might give him a little bit of an edge there. And even, let's say he does get the fight to the ground, Barberena's not the type of guy who'll, tap straight away or give up or anything like that. He'd have to have a lot of the fight beaten out of him. That sounds right. That sounds like I'm denigrating Barberena, so I don't mean it like that, but you want to have a hard fight before him, let's put it that way, like he did against Dos Anjos, to end up getting submitted. So, look, with all I said there, it's probably like betting the first round submission with everything I've said there after that. But that's my reckoning, that's my logic, and maybe I'm searching for logic to back that price, but I do like that price. Let's just for argument's sake as well, let's just have a quick look at Gunnar Nelson's record to maybe go even further with this. Of his 18-5. 7 of his fights, have gone to decision with one draw as well, added into the 18-5. Last 3 fights in a row, all decisions. Last 3 in a row, all decisions. And okay, he got a submission choke over Alex Oliveira, and he got one over Alan Jouban back in 2017. It was 2018, 2017 when he got them, And I know he hasn't been fighting that much, but that was kind of the point of it too. Takashi Sato last time out, he went to decision, only one decision against Takashi Sato. The two before that were obviously Burns and Leon Edwards, two of the best fighters in the world in that division. He lost to both of them, very close split decision with Leon Edwards, although not as close as split decision maybe would suggest. But yeah, I think that may play into it a little bit as well. So that's the first bet I'm going for anyway. It is like a semi-flyer, but I am going for it, and I am taking that at plus 325. Gunnar Nelson to win by decision. The next bet I'm going for here is a similar sort of bet, and I'm going for Jack Shore, the darts cheater, Jack Shore, to win his fight against Makwan Amirkhani, and I'm going to win by TKO KO at plus 200. Now, again, I may sound a bit anti-submission here on this one, but I just have a feeling, right, that Jack Shore will get the fight to the ground, or Amirkhani will get the fight to the ground. And I think Amirkhani will try to get the fight to the ground by any means possible in terms of him trying to get a submission. He'll grab onto a leg. I could see him even pulling guard a little bit, even though that's kind of playing into the game of where Jack Shore wants it, because Amirkhani knows if he doesn't get a big knockout early, maybe that it's his path to victory, even though it's probably not the best option, as I said, against a guy like Jack Shore. I think Jack Shore is better on the ground all around. I think he is a better wrestler. I think he has better jiu-jitsu, but that's close in terms of this bet. So the most likely outcome here, and I look at the betting here again for you, the most likely outcome, according to the bookies, is Shore inside the distance minus 155. But it's also Shore to win by submission at plus 185. Shore to win by decision plus 325. And in Shore to win by TKO KO, with the one I've given, is plus 200. So the TKO KO and the submission are not, they're not miles away at all. But to him to win inside the distance is minus 155, as I said. But I like, and I think the reason why they are a little bit closer, and I believe, let me just check, but I think that has moved in the last while. The submission bet, because I think the reason that bet is closer maybe than it would look, or many people would think it might be, is because of Amirkhani's jiu-jitsu. I think he is good on the ground. I think he does have good jiu-jitsu, and defensive jiu-jitsu. Can he stop Jack Shore from taking him down? Can he not from taking him down, but from submitting him? Is that going to be a big part to this? I think it. Honestly, it could be. Now, we will see. We will see if that ends up happening. We will see if Amirkhani can defend, especially if taking out early, especially if pulling guard early. But my thinking is there, right? You are against a guy who's good at defending submissions, against a guy who will, I think, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. My opinion is he'll try to get the fight to the ground. I think for certain the fight will end up on the ground, and will end up on the ground with Jack Shore on top. So if that happens, and the guys go to defending submissions, the TKO is the next one there. And I do think Jack Shore, after recent fights, going up the featherweight with that extra bit of gas in the tank, maybe, after obviously lost Ricky Simon last time out, I think he'll want to show something a little bit extra here. I think he'll want to get the finish, and I think he will be going for it. And I could see this like taking the back, landing a lot of ground and pound, and the referee coming in and stopping it. That's the sort of fight I see in this one. And maybe he'll slide into submission. Maybe if you want to double down on it, maybe go inside the distance, be a bit safer, minus 155. But I'm not being safe this week. I've decided not to be safe this week. I'll go back next week maybe, but yeah, that's my logic there. Jack Shore plus 200 to win by TKO KO. Right, the next bet is so next two bets are a little maybe. The second one isn't that safe. I think the first one is relatively safe, but it's safe in terms of the prices. So the first one is Leroy Duncan to beat Duško Todorovic, and he is minus 190. Just let me make sure I have the 100% up to date price on that. Yeah, minus 190 as I record here. Now that could change and move as well. I was looking at it yesterday. He was minus 175, out to minus 190 here. So by the time this video comes out, he could be well up to minus 205, minus 215 or something like that. If you don't know Leroy Duncan, I think you will know him pretty soon. This fight, to be fair though, it is a tough fight to start off your UFC career, and I think a lot of people know Duško Todorovic. He hits hard. He's a big guy for the weight class, has been around for a while, good bit of experience against tough guys. But the reason a debuting guy in the UFC is getting a name like Duško Todorovic, who's okay, he's not, he's not fighting, Luke Rockhold or Luke Rockhold's probably a bad example, but he's not fighting Adesanya or Gastelum or Whitaker or anything like that, but he's fighting a name that people know, which is an odd thing, I suppose, in the UFC these days. And the reason for that is he's excellent. Leroy Duncan is a guy who's come up through Cage Warriors, and just looked phenomenal the whole way. I've watched all of his fights, I'd say at this stage, and he's only had 7 of them in the professional ranks, and they've all been outstanding, all on Cage Warriors. Only debuted in 2020, in September of 2020, at Cage Warriors 116, and he's had an imperious rise since then. Had a massive career as a amateur fighting in the IMAFs, and different places for a good while. He had, 20 odd amateur fights debuting back in 2015. But as a Cage Warriors student, I suppose, if you want to put it there, he's had very interesting tests. So even in his first fight against Kyle McClurkin, very good fighter. For Will Curry, who a lot of people saw, will see fighting this weekend, and I saw over the last while, very good athlete, very good fighter. He beat him. The first one was weird, but he beat him by unanimous decision the second time. And then I feel like Ian Dean just started to test him. Justin Moore, a big, tough, muscular guy, destroyed him easy. Jati Milan, who had won the championship in the fight before, who I read very highly, destroyed him as well. And then they brought in this guy, Marian Dimitrov, who had been fighting out in the Eastern European scene and had won like 12 fights in a row, knocking lads out in the first round. I watched a lot of his fights, and this guy was an absolute monster. And Leroy Duncan knocked him out in the first round with a spinning back elbow and punches. He has passed every test so far with flying colours, and I would be surprised if he didn't pass this one too. I really, really rate this guy very highly. The only thing I can see going against him is the UFC jitters, and Todorovic has big power. So if Todorovic catches anyone who could put him out, that and the UFC jitters, everything else, I think he's a very good wrestler, good on the ground, brilliant striker, power. He doesn't look as powerful as he actually is. But yeah, having said all that, minus 190 Leroy Duncan. I don't think I need to say much more, because I think he's a guy we're going to be hearing a lot from over the next few years. Look, even if it doesn't go well on Saturday night, which I think it will, but even if it doesn't, I think it's a guy we're going to be hearing for a long, long while yet, especially in that relatively light middleweight division. The next bet I'm going for, and I have mulled over this one, and maybe it's a stupid bet to be given considering it's not the best price in the world, but I'm just going for Kamaru Usman straight up at minus 240. Honestly, I did a podcast the other day and I kind of talked myself into nearly picking Leon Edwards, and I thought about it a little bit more. I went back and I watched the fight again for maybe the third time in the last week, and I just fell on the side of Usman. Look, there are so many unknowns coming in here that I almost avoided this fight, but I didn't want to avoid. I wanted to pick someone. It's a main event, UFC pay-per-view main event. I wanted to pick I wanted to pick a bet in this, and the one I've come out for is the one is picking Usman. And the reason I'm going for that, right, is my logic after the fight, when it ended, and what I thought would happen next. And that was that Usman was the better fighter for most of the fight, but not as much as maybe people remember. He lost the first round. Remember that? Obviously got knocked out in the 5th round, and in the middle 3, he won, you know? And I thought, like, you don't get knocked out the next time, you'll win, right? That was my initial thinking. And that's kind of what I'm going back to. Like, who is the better all-around fighter? And that's how I usually pick fights. Like, that's how I think most people should pick fights. Like, who is the better all-around fighter? Like, it's okay if someone has, like, this unenviable power that you know, they have just a one-shot knock-up, or even, like, a really good submission game, like Bryan Ortega at that time when he was submitting everyone. It's fair to pick them to win by knockout or submission or whatever. But this might sound funny, right? Leon Edwards doesn't have that. Now, you know, this might sound funny. He just knocked him spark out in the last fight, so it's obviously a somewhat idiotic thing for me to say. But I think most people would actually probably agree with that, considering it's like not been a big part of Leon Edwards' game. Was it something he can do more? Was it something he saw in Usman that he can exploit again? Maybe. Do I think that's the case? I do not, right? I think there's ways that Edwards wins this fight. If they're both the exact same way they were the last time, right? And I think that will be by decision. If Edwards, if Usman is a little bit worse for wear, shall we put it that way, than the last time, I think there are more ways that Leon Edwards can put it. But if Edwards fights the same way he fought the last time, I don't think Leon Edwards is going to knock him out again, right? That'll be my opinion of it. I think the takedown in the first round is a thing that Leon Edwards should probably be looking for again, but in my opinion probably won't get again. And not just the first round takedown, I mean takedowns throughout the fight. He needs to do things a little bit differently this time out. I really, really think that. I think he needs to change things up. Variety is his friend here. Push the pace, push the cardio on Usman, and don't let him get into that rhythm that we saw him in from 2, 3, and 4, and even into part of 5. But I just struggle to see him actually doing that. I think Usman will be bang up for this. This is my opinion now, and I could be totally wrong. Usman could be a busted flush now. That could have been the last big fight this could be the last big fight of his career. It could be. We've seen it happen to guys all the time, right? But I just think he's going to bounce back here. It's my opinion. I could be wrong, as I said again. I think he's going to keep him at the end of that jab. I think he's going to play a very safe game, and I think he's going to come very much wrestle heavy. Very, very, very wrestle heavy, unless he's keeping him at the end of that jab. I talked about variation there for Edwards. I think it's going to... Variation is probably the wrong word for Usman, because I think he'll only do 2 things in overall senses. Keep him at the end of the jab and take him down. But I think he'll be more varied in terms of... I think he will be jab, 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 takedown, takedown, takedown. If he can't get the takedown, I think he'll be jab, 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 takedown quicker than it was before, and that will hurt Edwards a lot. I think it'll be a big issue for Edwards if he comes more wrestle heavy here with the determination of having a big loss in the last fight. I just think Usman is a little bit of a better fighter. I just do think he is that, and that's what I've gone back to, because I don't know if Usman is a lesser fighter now than he was when they stepped into the cage a few months ago. I don't know. I don't know in terms of his mentality. I don't know in terms of physically. I just don't know. What I do know is what I saw on that night and what I saw beforehand. And what I saw on that night was a guy setting up a beautiful knockout, executing it and getting it against the guy who was basically dominating him in all other fashions of the fight up until that, apart from the one takedown, that Edwards got in the first round. And it was one of those ones, the commentary god awful on that fight, god awful, apart from John Anik saving it. But the one smart thing that they did say in that commentary was that Kamaru Usman is just winning everywhere a little bit. And that's the difference here. Leon Edwards wins all of his fights, or many of his fights, because he's a little bit better than everyone else as an all-round fighter. And Usman is a little bit better than him everywhere as an all-round fighter. And that's a massive problem for him. When you're a Swiss Army knife, if you have Swiss Army knife 2.0 up against you, not good. It's really, really not good. Now, if you Swiss Army knife 2.0 and it's lost a couple of its blades, then suddenly you take the advantage again. But that's the question here. I'm backing my thoughts here. I don't know. Honestly, I'll be real with you. I don't know. Is this the best bet I've ever given? I don't think it is the best bet I've ever given. It's only minus 240. It's my thoughts, and it just feel free to make your own. But yeah, that's the bet I'm giving anyway. Kamaru Usman minus 240. Right, let's move on to the flyer of the week, and I'm going for Muhammad Mokaev to win by TKO KO at plus 475. And when I saw this, this was my flyer, and I was never getting away from it. So Mokaev is minus 800 to win the fight straight up, and the submission is plus 100 for Mokaev. Now, I've gone and I watched Jafel Filho, his opponent, who, if you have watched him, is very much not a striker, very much a wrestler who likes submissions. Now, he has 5 TKO KOs in his career. I would suggest a lot of them are probably ground and pound TKOs or something like that, or maybe caught in triangles and knocked out like that or something like that. He is a very kind of, doesn't throw much, wrestle heavy, tries to take a guy down, tries to submit him. And if you do that, like, I was going to say, if you do that against Mokaev, you're in trouble. You cannot do that against Mokaev. Like, he's going to have to find another way. Like, and his way to win this fight is to go for submissions. Fialo's route to victory here is to get a leg lock, win a scramble, get a neck, get a leg or something. And the reason I have gone for Mokaev to get the knockout here is going to be a ground and pound knockout. Now, actually, having said that, I think if the fight stays on the feet, I think Mokaev could get a knockout too, possibly, because he does hit hard, and I think he will throw a lot more strikes than Filho does, unless Filho is like, well, I can't wrestle and grapple with this guy, I'm going to have to strike with him, and we see something different. Keep that in mind. But if the fight goes to the ground, I think it is going to be Filho looking for legs, looking for submissions. Mokaev is going to get on top and start landing big ground and pound. You know, if Mokaev is caught in a leg lock, he's just going to start throwing punches. He's an absolute berserker. And that's the way I see the fight finishing. I see, honestly, I could see Filho holding onto a leg and Mokaev ground and pounding him with hammer fists and knocking him out that way. Or the referee having to step in like that. Like, okay, Mokaev to get the submission is the favourite here. Filho to get the submission is plus 2,000. Now, if you want a real flyer, there's one for you. But I really like this bet. I really like this flyer, Mokaev plus 475. That's one of the bets that I'll be putting on myself without a shadow of a doubt on Saturday night to get the TKO KO there. I think, he's a better striker than him. Could get the knockout there, in my opinion. Now, I watched like 3 of 4 of Carvalho's Fialo's fights, and like he barely struck. He waits and gets a takedown. As I said, you can't do that against Mokaev. So, from what I've seen, better striker, or throws more strikes, more chance of getting a knockout. Obviously a better wrestler. And the jiu-jitsu, Filho very good on the ground in terms of the jiu-jitsu, but it's all jiu-jitsu, and we know that wrestling beats jiu-jitsu. We know that unless he gets caught in something, I think Mokaev is probably pounding him out here. He really is. So plus 475 there. I like that a lot. Right, let's have a look at some of the other fights and just some of the other prices around there as well. Just quickly on the main event as well. So Usman is minus 240 plus 205 for Edwards. A little bit bigger of a price than I thought, to be honest. I thought it'd be a little bit closer to that, but Edwards seemingly hasn't got the respect for the last time. If you fancy, there's a lot of bets here. If you fancy Edwards to get another knockout, it is plus 450. Usman is plus 285. So, as I was saying earlier on, like Edwards is not the favourite to get the same result as he got the last time. Not within a world of it even. Usman to win inside the distance plus 275. Usman to win by decision plus 120. Edwards to win by decision is plus 450. If you did go for Edwards, it's funny to say the decision is the best way to go, but it probably is. But yeah, I wouldn't be backing that. There's not a lot of bets I like here, but I'm going for the Usman one anyway. The co-main event is the one big fight we haven't spoken about yet, and honestly, I was so close to giving the biggest flyer maybe I've ever given in this, and that is Justin Gaethje to win in round 3. and it's plus 1,800 now. Actually, 5 minutes ago when I looked at this, it was plus 1,900, but it's plus 1,800. Gaethje to win in round 3. I'm picking Fiziev to win the fight, right? But I just have a feeling that if Gaethje can hang in there until the 3rd round and push the pace on Fiziev, we've seen Fiziev wilt before, and we know that Gaethje gets tired, but he keeps going. And I really I think that's a great. Let's say 1,800. I love that price. Another bet I was looking at a while ago, which is interesting, is a submission for Fiziev at plus 1,600. Now, I do think it'll be a fight fought out predominantly on the feet, but we've seen the massive issues in Justin Gaethje's submission game in recent fights against Khabib, especially. Now, Fiziev is not Khabib, or he's not Charles Oliveira for that matter either. But I think if we're looking at like massive weaknesses in the game, I think that's one that could be exploited here. So that's an interesting bet for me. Look, the KO for either of them. Gaethje plus 285 plus 120 for Fiziev to get the KO. Have your pick there, but I'm just about leaning Fiziev. But if I was going for the bet, I'd go for FLIER, the late win there. The other big fight we didn't speak about was Vettori Dolidze. One of avoided because I don't like the price. Minus 265 for Vettori, plus 225 for Dolidze. I've picked Vettori to win, but I think it's a closer fight than that. I don't like that price very much. The Casey O'Neill fight as well. I do think she'll win at minus 165. Like, I have an awful feeling that price afterwards might be an absolute steal, and we'll all be looking back at it and thinking, why didn't we back her at that price? But I've kind of pulled out of it a little bit. I'm like, man, do you know what? I'm not going to take that chance today. Luana Carolina as well against Joanne Woods, plus 165. You kind of have to bang that in. After Lipsky last week, I pulled out of that one. I think this is the one you do go for with Carolina. Like Joanne Wood, she can hardly buy a win in the last 3 or 4 fights. So yeah, that's an interesting one there. And that's kind of the big bets there. A lot of big prices for Jake Hadley, minus 360 against Malcolm Gordon. I do think he will win, but that's too big of a price to look at. Like Jack Shorter straight up is minus 500 as well. I know we gave the bet for him earlier on. The Jai Herbert one is an interesting one against Ludovic Klein, minus 190 for Klein, plus 165 for Jai Herbert. Jai probably not the best appearance of his career last time out, but ended up getting the win. So if he bounces back and is better here, I think that one plus 165 is not a bad price at all. And I would have a look at that. Even Herbert knockout plus 310. Probably go for the minus 165 if I'm being honest there. Not too much of a difference in it. So yeah, those are the ones I'm looking for there on the undercard. So yeah, there's some interesting fights over in KSW. I know there's the Invicta, but this because the odds are very late coming out, won't be out in time for that. So I'll leave those bets because by the time this comes out, the fights will be over or almost over. But Tom Breeze fighting over in KSW against Bartos. Let's go Breeze bouncing back after losing last time out. He's minus 188 favourite. I do think he will be able to get it done there. It's not the biggest standout card in the world for KSW. Interesting fight, Umar Sy against Luis Enrique da Silva, who we used to see in the UFC before. He's an underdog there, plus 180 against C. I'd only go for Da Silva. Da Silva blows hot and cold, but maybe throw a bet on that one. But yeah, we will leave it there anyway. Let's quickly recap my 5 bets for the week. So the 4 bets and then the FLIER. Gunnar Nelson to win by decision plus 325. Jack Shore to win by TKO KO at plus 200. Christian Leroy Duncan in his UFC debut, the former Cage Warriors middleweight champion, at minus 190 to win straight up against Duško Todorovic. Then Kamaru Usman. I'm not very confident, but minus 240 to win his fight against Leon Edwards. And then Mohamed Mokaev in the FLIER to win by KO TKO at plus 475. All right, everyone, I will leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.